Stress.
It affects everybody in different ways.
No, for real. I do. I get hella stressed out before this.
Yeah? Like stage fright?
Yeah, I do. Even by myself. Just trying to, like, in my head, working out what I'm saying. Like, like just to be like, hey, like, welcome back. Because in my mind, I'm like, it's not right.
But you did it. And now we're here on another episode
Of the Dallas Podcast Group. I am the Elder. He is HD. Welcome back.
Top 5 wrestlers of all time right now. Go.
Kenneth Omega from AEW. The Young Bucks, I'm going to count them as one because they're a sick tag team. Masha Slamovich, she's fucking tight.
That's 3.
Bryan Danielson. And probably like Eddie Kingston. Hitters.
Nice.
Currently, in the current times, but it's all subjective. It depends on what you watch. Like a lot of WWE fans don't watch AEW, vice versa. And then there's like the outlier promotions like Impact. A lot of like some people don't watch it, some people do.
What's the whole CM Punk thing? Because that I don't understand. I tried to like keep up, but I don't know the names.
With it, CM Punk was prominent in WWE, and then he dropped out of WWE.
Fell hard in UFC.
Yeah, of his own accord, he dropped out of WWE. Basically, was like, "Fuck you!" Like, I am more than this company. Kind of like I think he was just full of himself, you know, for the position that he had worked his way up in the company.
Well, I mean, wasn't he like a big shot?
He was a top guy.
Yeah.
He definitely was a top guy, especially in WWE. And he was like an outlier.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't a WWE superstar per se. He wasn't their ideal of like what a WWE superstar.
Like a John Cena.
Yes.
Or like
he was the total anti like kind of mainstream wrestler. He was like literally a guy from the fucking independent that was so good that he worked his way onto the main roster and established himself as a guy who was like a top star, you know? And like all credit due to him, he was good. But then, yeah, he dropped out, did UFC and whatever.
Tried it.
Did acting, whatever else. I think he was out of the ring for like 7 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. And then when AEW was established, I guess their whole thing was like, we're going to try to get CM Punk to come back. And he did come back, and then the same thing right away. He was like, well, I'm the top guy here. It helped the company just as much as it hurt the company. But also he came in already like on a high horse and was like, he's starting shit with a lot of people. A lot of people were calling him out. He's kind of hands off. You got to leave him alone because he's like an asset. So there was a lot of guys that are like, you're either a CM Punk guy or not a CM Punk guy, as far as talent goes.
Yeah.
But he got into an altercation with one of the talents at a show. And apparently it led into him being like quote unquote suspended. But I think from what it sounds like, they were looking for an excuse to let him go because he was just causing too much shit.
Yeah.
And I think really what it was is that he had too much free reign. Something in comparison to like back in the day when WCW was around, the NWO was running that promotion and like everything that was going on.
Yeah.
And it's like NWO was on top and everybody else was like an afterthought, you know?
Right.
And I think that's kind of where it was for CM Punk, is that he did for himself and they did for him to keep him around. But it also made a lot of people unhappy and it was causing a lot of friction. And because AEW is still like working its way into prominence and it's still an active competitor to WWE, a lot of guys were like, hey, dude, we'll jump ship. Like, we'll fucking dip. We'll dip out. And I think it was causing a lot of like friction. So AEW was like, well, that's like the
end of the road.
Kind of the end of the road, yeah. And then there's still kind of talks like that they'll bring him back as a agent or like not an on-screen talent.
Yeah.
It's kind of uncertain at the moment.
That's what happens, man, when you let it get to you.
But yeah, pro wrestling. It's always been like that. It's nothing new. Honestly, pro wrestling's been political for as long as it's been around. It's all a matter of like, you know, your status and the company and the politics that come with off-air, like, unseen activity.
Yeah. I'll tell you right now, top 5 all time. Number 1, John Cena. It's got to be. 2, Rey Mysterio. 3, Jeff Hardy. 4, Randy Orton. 5 is a toss-up between 3 people. Edge, Shawn Michaels, Batista.
That's not a bad list.
That's my list, watching it mainly in the early to late 2000s.
Yeah, that's not a bad list because a lot of those guys, a lot of those names are still relevant.
Yeah.
Rey Mysterio is still prominent. Edge, too. Edge came back from an otherwise career-ending injury.
It was his, like, knee or something, wasn't it?
something that was going to keep him out, something like a neck or like a disc, or a lot of these guys, they suffer like it's always like a neck or like a fuse, fusing their discs and all this shit.
Yeah, you can't fuse your dicks.
Hey, yo!
You can. It's called docking.
Sure, I never heard of it.
Google's, kids. Go on Google. Jeff Hardy's still wrestling. I don't know for how long.
Yeah, that dude's
he's still,
up there in age.
He's still, yeah. But he also has like a lot of substance issues.
Oh, yeah?
And like it's played a major part in, because he's with AEW right now. And they had to put him on basically like sabbatical. They sent him to rehab and stuff. They're like, hey, don't come back if you can't.
Stay off that spoon.
Get right. They get all like pilled up and stuff. Like Kurt Angle recently, he just had he's doing like a press run basically because he had a documentary made about him and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
He's basically doing his runs, and I tuned in for his episode with Joe Rogan. He was talking about like everything he was in. This fool was eating like handfuls like of painkillers just to get through the day and shit. And then like it would only worsen because then he would like abuse alcohol with the pills, and like he had to clean himself up, And then I guess now because of the injury that he has, like a lot of his muscle is deteriorating.
These people, they put themselves through extreme stuff. I mean, a lot of them were like actually wrestling even before WWE, like.
Well, Kurt Angle went to the Olympics as a collegiate wrestler.
Well, he won gold, didn't he?
Yeah. Listening to Joe Rogan, he was talking about like the one consistent thing that he's had throughout his career. He's broken his neck like 1,000,000 times. And that's from like collegiate wrestling through like professional wrestling. He's just broken his fucking neck. Like he's done a lot of like irreversible damage to his body at this point.
Well, I don't think we're supposed to take that kind of beating.
He's changed.
Yeah.
Not to say that he won't get any better, but
he is who he is.
It's not going to be like, if you and me like sprain our ankle and we have to like take time off and whatever.
Yeah.
Like this fool's he's probably going to be like 70%, 60%
from here on out.
From here on out. Shit's crazy.
Dude, I hit 25 and I'm like as healthy as I can be. Like it's done, dude. I wake up and I feel it in the morning.
Some guys have all the luck. I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms. At night, I lie awake in agony until my heart attacks put me to sleep. Oh, no! No!
Hey, is it true that, I think you said this last time, we're big in Argentina or Germany or something?
We're big in Germany. We're big in Germany. Shout out Mitchell Martinez because he was like, hey, I listened to your episode. You're big in Germany? Yeah, Das is good. No, yeah, we have the whole point of what we were talking about is that you never know where people will discover you, like in terms of this sort of platform. Like for him through writing and through publishing his comic, he was saying you never know where your following will come from, like who will reach out to you from where.
Yeah.
And before we had our initial discussion, our recording, I was like, the one thing that I will ask of you, I was like, the way that I've asked like two of the other people that I've talked to, I'm like, just if you can listen to the podcast, obviously for the analytics, but listen to the show so that you can get an overall vibe of what you can look forward to.
Right.
Obviously, because it's not going to be for everybody. And I don't know what the expectation is like.
Well, I think sometimes we just talk to talk. Like we have definitely a vibe.
And I would rather what it is and what it sounds like and like how we're going to be, like talking to each other as opposed to like anyone that would ever want to be a part of to want to have a discussion with us. I couldn't be like, you know what docking is? That's fucking weird, dude. I couldn't do that. Yeah. Because it might be it might be abrasive to like everybody. It might be too abrasive for some people. But I would rather what like that cadence is going to sound like. Yeah. Because obviously we already we have a familiarity.
Well, I don't know if you're aware. Are you still playing COD?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the little message.
Yeah, the AI, the voice chat thing. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Call of Duty, which is a first-person shooter, added an AI voice detecting thing to make sure that you weren't using ill phrases, ill words, slurs, anything of the type. And if the AI detected that you did use it, you would get warned and then banned. And I know somebody that knows somebody that got a 30-day ban.
You fraternize with people that get banned?
No, I know a guy that knows a guy that got banned.
And you know what's crazy is that thinking about it from when we were kids, when a lot of this started, it was almost the foundation that Xbox Live and like live interaction with people, what it was built on.
Yeah.
People would fucking exactly like what memes and jokes are about like playing Call of Duty. It's like you're getting called slurs and like expletives that are like fucking crazy.
Yeah. I hope this family member dies. I hope that family member dies. And you're just like, what? Like, I'm a child. I have school tomorrow morning.
Like over a game. It's like the culture of what online gaming is.
Yeah. And people would either tell you that because you're really good or you're just fucking dog shit. They would never tell the person right in the middle that.
Or to do it just, there's like that fringe kind of group, that fringe type of person that plays, and that's what they do just to do it.
Yeah.
You know, there are no real consequences when there is no name and no face.
You just log off, go to bed, and that's it.
And even that, you never know. This fool could be the cashier like at the gas station. You never know.
Yeah.
It's just some guy. Or some kid, some adult, some father of two with a normal job. And they're like, your mom's an You're like, bro, I'm Mexican. What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I own you, little bitch. You can't play this game, man. Get out of the tank and then let's see who wins. I'm like #1 in support, so I'll kill you. Yeah, get out the tank next time and then let's see who will win, you little
Spanish curse words? Would that get flagged?
Wait, as far as what?
Like just in general. Like I don't think we're not getting monetized or anything, but I'm just saying like if we were and then you use Spanish curse words instead of English ones, would you then get demonetized?
I don't think so. Cursing, as long as it's like nothing, like we were just saying, like racial, like expletives that are otherwise like not cool.
Yeah.
I think general cursing is pretty like across the board.
But if it's like demeaning,
if it's like
hateful,
yeah,
gotcha.
Kind of like the overall like, you know, YouTube or anything like we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, not to say that we don't already.
Yeah.
Let me put that out there. We don't say crazy shit like that.
We're very tame.
There's at least one of us that probably says some crazy shit.
Maybe.
I'm not going to say that it's me. There's at least one of us. But you
I'm not going to say it's me either.
I'm going to say it's fucking Hector. Fuck yeah.
Let's talk about movies, man.
Okay, so the whole catalyst to what I had brought up to HD comes from several things. To paraphrase, you know, overall, just a lot of it. I had read an article. I've read a few articles, but one of them, the main one that had started off was that as far as where we are currently in society, are certain movies from back in the day, we're talking like Friday, Scary Movie, think Tropic Thunder, Superbad, even taking it back to movies like Animal House or Porky's, you know, are movies like that, can they still be considered classic? That said, I was also listening to a podcast that, shout out to the community, they were having a discussion about what is considered a stoner classic and are stoner classics real things. This all ties in with the whole overall theme of movies.
Yeah.
And what are considered classics, cult classics, you know, what makes them memorable, impressionable. The last thing was, shout out to the Nomad. Every now and then during the month he releases on his story a little list of movies that he's watched, and then he gives like an overall rating. Now, I can't speak too much to what the thought process is behind, you know, his ratings, what goes into him, what he thinks about him. But I myself, from a personal standpoint, like some of the movies that he's given ratings to, some of them are I agree with. But then I think like on some of his recent lists, he's done like Friday and Scary Movie, which to me, I would consider classic. Mm-hmm. But I think he gave like really low personal ratings to. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And I wonder why. And I'm like, why didn't you like that? Like, for what? But also, it's kind of just this whole culmination of things of like, is that because of what his mindset is currently, because of the day and age that we're in, being, I don't like saying woke because
appropriate.
It's appropriate.
Politically appropriate.
Yes. What is considered appropriate? Like, is that because of not a change of heart, but like...
Maybe
you know,
like a progressive
of,
stance?
Yes. Or is it because of his age range? Obviously, he's like, especially the two of you are younger than I am. Mm-hmm. Whereas I grew up in the early to mid 90s with a lot of these movies when they were, you know, heavily like at the top of where they were supposed to be. And to me, I fall into this weird kind of gray area where, like, I understand why it's not okay. I have my own stance on shit. Obviously, we're all, as individuals, we have different stances on what our opinions are. But the main focus is, like, what would you consider a classic as far as movies? And, what makes these movies classic?
For me personally, when I think classic movies, I think something that I personally could watch over and over and over again, that I could quote, that I have no problem talking about it, looking back fondly at it, and maybe in a couple months rewatching it. And there's different films for different categories, right? Like my favorite movie of all time is Space Jam. It's a classic.
Really?
Yeah, it's the best movie of all time.
They're monsters. Suffering succotash. They're monsters. I think we might need a little bit of help.
But for other people, I know other people that consider it a classic too. But I know if I asked a very certain demographic that doesn't like baseball, or baseball doesn't like basketball, doesn't like the Looney Tunes, they'd probably be like, that movie sucks, right? I think it's very opinion-based, very subjective rather than objective. But I think right now, like you said, we're in this weird spot where it's like looking at a movie like Friday, where it's maybe poking fun at certain things that now we wouldn't even dare touch. And it's like, why have we moved away from that? Well, it's that, I guess, enlightened state of mind, that progressive thinking that makes us shy away from it. I think especially when it comes to comedy movies. I can't tell you in the last 5 years a good comedy that I've seen. Can you think of one?
I personally can't. And to be honest, and I think it's a lot of that has changed. And it's one of the variables that I've read about, that I've come across reading these articles on the subject. I think a lot of that has changed because movies don't hold the same weight that they once did, especially now when everything is at your own convenience, when we have different streaming platforms. And personally, I don't watch TV.
Yeah.
A lot of what I watch, I consume a lot of YouTube. And it's not so much like, I'm not like my kids. I don't watch like Mr. Beast and like YouTubers, quote unquote YouTubers.
Yeah.
Like Sniper Wolf and shit. Like these are people that my kids watch. I watch a lot of video analysis. I watch a lot of iceberg videos.
Okay.
A lot of variations of analysis and discussions on subject matter that is relevant to me. A lot of, deep dives into animes, deep dives into novels and different serialized comics, movies explains,
docking.
Jesus Christ.
And a lot of body cam footage from police, because that shit is wild. That's what a lot of what I consume. And even then movies, as much as I'm a fan of comedy, I like a lot of horror. One of the last movies that I thought was really well done and really good was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, yeah. Didn't it win an Oscar or something?
I thought it was a really good movie.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head on the topic of what would you consider a classic, especially now.
Yeah.
But without kind of jumping ahead too far. To kind of touch on Friday, one of the analysis that I had read, on the one hand, a lot of people considered Friday to be almost a caricature because of its setting, its context, the way that the characters were portrayed. On the other hand, he may or may not have had some hand in producing it, but Ice Cube obviously created Friday.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
He himself growing up in Los Angeles. And then again, to shout out the community, it's an LA movie. They were, speaking from experience, speaking from people that came from Los Angeles, that are from the streets, that were active and gang affiliated at one point or another in their life. Whatever the case may be, this is an LA classic, to quote them. And it is relevant to them because they can see themselves in that movie.
Yeah.
So it isn't a caricature. It isn't uncharacteristic of what you may or may not see, but it is derived from that environment.
Right.
And so they disagreed with the idea that it was almost not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I get both sides of that. To me personally, I grew up during the mid 90s and I watched Friday.
Yeah.
I've watched Friday since I was a kid. For me, that is a personal classic.
Yeah.
Is it an overall classic to everybody? No. But like you said, in terms of quotability, can I go back and watch it? If it's on TV, can I watch it? If I'm able to stream it, will I watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
I would.
It is a personal classic to me. But all that being said, like, I wonder what, like, jokey jokes aside, but like, why didn't the Nomad like it? Like, why did he give it such a low personal rating?
I didn't even see that he rated it.
I'm suing y'all. Oh, I'm hurt. Oh, my neck, my back, my neck and my back. Oh, I want $150,000. But we can start our court right now for $20.
Man, get your punk ass up. It ain't even wet over here.
I think watching it, because I haven't watched it in years. Like, I quote it all the time, but I haven't watched it in years. And I think maybe if I went back and watched it now, maybe my views on what I think of the movie might change in terms of what they're talking about. But that doesn't mean that it's still not a classic to me. Because at the time when I watched it, it was very relevant in terms of, like, it was funny. It was, like I said, quotable. And everybody was watching it. It wasn't just you, it was everybody. Like, if you talked about it, other people would chime in and be like, hey, I watched it too, and I got this from it, or whatever. But I was reading this article that said that there are 6 things that make an instant classic. And these are the 6 things. 1 is topicality. So great movies often start out as topical films about things in the news or about social issues in contention. This is coming from an article written by Mick LaSalle, written in 2019. I needed to give him credit before, he sues us.
Shout out to the source.
Timelessness. Great movies deal in emotional issues and subjects that anyone might understand no matter what era they happen to be living in. 3, one great scene. In a great movie, there's usually at least one scene that stands out like a horse's head on satin sheets. Shout out to The Godfather. A great performance is another one. An overarching consciousness or personality, and a complex finish. That is what makes an instant classic, according to Mick LaSalle. He quotes some movies that might fall into the category of an instant classic. He says Schindler's List, The Godfather, Casablanca, Gone with the Wind, to name a few. I've seen maybe 3 of those. I know a lot of people would consider a lot of those instant classics. I don't know if I would consider them instant classics, but they're good.
Ilza, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday you'll understand that. Now, here's looking at you, kid.
I may be wrong. I think I mentioned like Criterion films to you. I think a couple of those are Criterion films. Like, as much as I want to say that I'm a fucking movie guy and all this shit, like, it was sort of vague, like, what makes a Criterion film. Because I definitely think Casablanca is one of those movies that they consider Criterion, but it's a boring movie.
Yeah, man.
Casablanca is a boring fucking movie. And I mean, I'm all for, like, I've been thinking about this shit a lot. Like, one of the main reasons why I really enjoy anime is I am a huge fan of romanticism. But specifically in regards to, like, One Piece as an example, is that during Enies Lobby, when the Straw Hats go to free Nico Robin to basically claim an overall war against the world government and the Marines and stuff, Luffy tells Usopp, or Soga King at the time, he's like, shoot down their flag as an act of defiance, as of retaliation, to overall say, like, we are not afraid of you.
Yeah.
The main overall thing in that scene is that they tell Robin, like, you have to tell us that you want to live. And then there's this whole fucking, like, really impassioned scene and this little monologue that she goes through. And
I want to live.
Yeah. Fucking the idea of, like, that is true romanticism to me. That very fucking scene. And that's, like, it's like a very powerful fucking thing. Yeah. That's just animation. It's a fucking cartoon.
If I'm allowed to say my wish just this once, then I want to live! Take me with you! Take me away from here!
In comparison, something like Inglourious Basterds.
Haven't watched it.
I think is a fucking amazing movie. And is one of my personal favorites as well, what I would consider a classic. But there are several scenes throughout that movie that they're just powerful, you know what I mean? And there's a few scenes in that fucking movie that you're like, oh, like, that's it.
Well, I think that turns into great acting performances.
Oh, yeah. The performance has to be behind I think like portraying the overall portrayal of what you're watching.
Yeah. Whether that's acting, voice acting, all right? Because you could get that from the same acting in video games, all right? Any type of media that you take in. When I think of like acting, people that stand out to me is Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. That acting was great. It was tremendous. And I don't know, like that movie, I can't really think back on the other like Batman movies within that trilogy. Like I know what happens in them, but like that stands out as an instant classic because of that acting performance, you know?
And definitely out of that trilogy, out of that franchise, that movie, I feel like that movie stands the test of time as far as like, do you want to see like a good comic book movie?
Yeah.
Like all sides opposed, regardless of whether you're, you know, DC or Marvel, fuck whatever. But that movie is like a fan favorite for just fans of
cinema,
like cinema and comic book culture. And
yeah,
like, it's a good fucking movie. Like it is just like generally a good movie across the board.
Yeah.
But because of the acting and the back and forth between the characters and their dynamic and, you know, the overall, I feel like the overall portrayal of like the mood and the tone of that movie.
Yeah.
Like it's extremely well done.
It is. The directing is great.
And then just Christopher Nolan he executed those movies fucking like amazingly.
Yeah.
The first one's kind of boring. Not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I would say most people probably go in order of like Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Is that the last one?
Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises, right?
Yeah.
And then the first one with Liam Neeson. From an article that I read, movies don't have the same impact, and that same sort of, we'll just say impact. They don't have the same impact that they once had because a lot of what we're viewing now is franchised or, you know, franchisable universes. Much like what we usually bring up, stuff like Marvel movies. Which
shout out to Star Wars.
Which is a big... I'll get to that. There's a whole topic of discussion when it comes to Star Wars. Do you consider 4 through 6 classics and everything else is kind of just falls by the wayside?
I consider...
Because a lot of people consider the original trilogy classics.
1 through 3 or 1 through 6.
They consider them classic movies.
Yeah.
And then everything after that, like from like when we were kids, or from when I was a kid, like episode 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And then all the other movies after that, like forgettable. Because they were just kind of like nonsense, you know? It's reboots on top of reboots. And then everything additionally. Whereas, like, comparatively, I think they say that... I've only seen it the one time, but Rogue One...
Yeah.
I guess it's
great.
Is amazing.
Yeah.
I would have to watch it again. I only watched it the one time, and it was like... I was real, like, begrudgingly, like, watching it and stuff, but...
Yeah. Diego Luna did great.
I think I would have to watch it again. But then there's like the Han Solo movie and
all the shows,
which get tiring.
I think it just what they're trying to piggyback off of and make their money off of is just nostalgia, and then just attracting new fans, new fandoms. They see that like a lot of the people that grew up watching this stuff now have kids, so they're gonna expose their kids to it, buy their kids the action figures, the collectibles, the betting, all of that stuff. Is it good? Probably not, but it doesn't have to be if it has a nostalgic factor. People are going to watch it regardless, just so they could get on a platform like this and talk bad about it for an episode or so. And
to give their opinion.
Yeah.
Their opinion that no one asked for.
Yeah, but it's there. If you want to listen to it or see it or whatever.
Again, to go back to the whole idea of like, you know, that movies don't hold the same weight and they don't have the same impact because we invest a lot of the craft of making a film in movies like franchise movies, Marvel.
Yeah.
Look at Martin Scorsese fucking has a whole laundry list of reasons why these fucking movies are terrible, and you're talking about a guy who made his career on nothing but like heavy drama, like mob fucking movies and shit. Which, like, shout out to Martin Scorsese because he makes amazing films.
And I think he's just a master craftsman of his time.
Exactly. He is a student of old Hollywood that made movies, you know, when we still thought that Hollywood was like...
the end-all, be-all.
The end-all, be-all, magical, like, you and me, kid, we're going to be in the marquee and all this fucking crazy shit.
Yeah.
But that's where he comes from. Look at... Now we have... Not to say that they're not students of film or of, you know, old Hollywood, but we have people that go against the grain, like a Taika Waititi, who has a creative touch and a specific flavor of movie. You know, it's a Taika Waititi movie, but
what's the cost?
There is a very clear cut in like a Martin Scorsese movie and a Taika Waititi movie.
Yeah.
Especially like to use Marvel as an example. What I consider Marvel movies classic. As a whole, that first initial run that gave us
up until like
Infinity War,
Endgame,
I would consider of the entire run, Infinity War and Endgame, I would consider those movies classics. And I would go back and watch those movies specifically.
Yeah.
Would I go back and watch like maybe Guardians 1? Yeah.
The Guardians movies as a whole, they're pretty solid. 2 was all right, I think. 2
definitely of like the
trilogy.
Of the trilogy, 1 and 3 are probably...
Yeah.
Well, 1 is probably the best one. I'll keep it like that.
3 is the best one
3 is
far.
3 is definitely under 1. And 2 is, again, it's there. You can watch it.
Fair enough.
You can watch it, but 1 is better.
I mean, yeah, they've released some good stuff. Like, I'm not going to say that I haven't watched the majority of the films. I don't watch the shows. I can't get myself to sit down and endure the shows. I think they market them so much, and they're just generally so underwhelming. I think
the first two series disillusioned us to consuming the rest of the shows.
Yeah.
Because WandaVision was great.
Yeah, WandaVision was good. Loki was good.
And
it's still coming out with another season.
Yeah. Which hasn't been done for that whole, like, the streaming series.
Yeah.
I even fucking watched this fucking last one, with Samuel Jackson.
Oh, Secret Invasion?
Fuck.
Isn't Emilia Clarke like a bad person or something?
Yeah.
Like a villain?
She's like
she's the Super Skrull, right?
Yeah, but she ends up being like...
No, spoiler alert, sorry.
Spoilers if you haven't watched the fucking show. Or if you chose not to watch the show, but...
It's been out long enough.
She's the strongest character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No.
Yep.
According to who?
According to the canon.
What? So what? What is the next big... Like, she's the next big bad to...
She is it. She is fucking better than everybody. The way that they built that character, she's better than everybody. She will fucking absolutely demolish everybody.
And it's like, who's gonna fucking fight her, bro? Like, who?
The Beyonder.
The Beyonder?
Fuck yeah, dude.
Retcon Beyonder or old Beyonder?
No, old Beyonder. When he wasn't even like a character. When he was just a name.
Didn't have the white jacket yet?
No. Hey, that fucking saucy fucking Beyonder.
Drip.
Just fucking icy. He was like, you guys want to die right now or
later?
You want to die later? Yeah, I'll come back. But... I understand the pros and cons of buying into series of that kind and those franchises.
Yeah.
Look at Harry Potter. I brought up Harry Potter specifically because it's one of those things that there's too much, like, there's not enough, like, like they're dumb movies, but, like, no, like, they're amazing movies.
Mm-hmm.
It is, like, almost across the board, like, a classic franchise.
Yeah.
Like those films, you can go back to and watch them repeatedly, and you can introduce them to,
the next generation.
And they will hold this test, the quote unquote test of time, because they're just overall good movies.
Yeah.
And that's aside from the source material, which has proven to hold up well.
I mean, they're still selling copies after copies after copies.
Maybe not like the like Newt Scamander stuff, like the additional
Fantastic Beasts,
like stuff that have the written works that are brought out, but like that, from 1 through 7?
7, part 1 and 2.
But they're all like really well done. And personally, I would consider those classic movies, a classic franchise to go back to.
The legacy of the movies is that my children's generation will show them to their children. So you could be watching it in 50 years' time. Easy. I'll not be here, sadly, but... Don't you think on it for 1 minute. But Haggard will. Yes.
The same as like a Lord of the Rings or a The Hobbit, which is an arguable thing because some people would say that the Hobbit trilogy is better than Lord of the Rings.
I've heard that.
Shout out again to the Nomad, who I'll probably shout out throughout this whole thing. But I think he is someone who enjoys The Hobbit more than Lord of the Rings, if I'm not mistaken.
I would love to give you an opinion on it. I haven't watched them. I feel like because I watched Star Wars, I watched Harry Potter. I don't know. Like,
you know who doesn't like Star Wars?
The Nomad.
Shout out to the Nomad because he does not.
I think at that point he's just trying to like.
I think he's just being fucking contrarian at that point.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't like it.
I'm a hipster.
I like anime, but I don't like Star Wars. All right. I don't like Doctor Who, man. I tried.
Yeah.
I tried. I can't do it.
That's Britain's #1 superhero now.
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
He's the Beyonder?
Yeah, it's like Doctor Who, and I think Theo Von said like Paddington. Kind of going back to the whole like comedy argument. I think comedians like that, they're funny, right? Because they don't give a shit. They just talk about what they're going to talk about, and that's that. Like, they're not scared of getting canceled. And I think that's what Hollywood fears, and Hollywood has bought into that woke culture. Like, we need to be as progressive as possible, as politically accurate as possible, to keep the masses happy enough to buy our subscriptions, pay for an overpriced ticket. And I mean, it's working, but I don't know. Like, it's hard to have as many of those instant classics because fear of being canceled, fear of
like some type of retribution.
Yeah.
Of like this friction that it causes.
Yeah.
Because it's like now, I mean, not to say that everything was fine before this.
Yeah.
Definitely, it was like, one could say it was like less ethnic roles injected into films.
Oh, for sure.
Less,
yeah.
Highlighted like demographics.
And there should be all of these factors included into film where it was being neglected for so long.
Like right off the top of my head, a big example of that is John Wayne, for as acclaimed as he was and as beloved as he was for a certain period and for a fan of a certain time, for a certain demographic of like an older age.
Yeah.
I think he was one of those people that like his role was either fucking Genghis Khan or Attila the Hun, but it's fucking John Wayne playing this character. Whereas now, fast forward to 2023, and to touch back on the topic of Haley Bailey playing the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
These are two different spectrums of what we're seeing in movies.
Yeah.
It's either we have a bunch of white guys playing,
ethnic roles,
or we have someone of an ethnic background playing like a coded, a word that I learned, a coded character, like an assumed coded character.
Assumed being the key word.
Assumed being the key word, because when people talk about Ariel, the big argument is that, well, she was white with red hair. Okay, but it's also a mythological fucking creature that we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, some chick from that actually existed. It's a portrayal of
a made-up character.
A made-up character.
That doesn't even exist.
But you see, like, the argument is, like, these are the things that we have seen in film and what... It's almost like the role reverse now, as opposed to having, like, mostly, like, one ethnic background being Caucasian, where it's like now we're injecting new roles, but it's like we're, like you said, like, to appease certain demographics, to appease everybody, it's like now we have to inject a certain amount of different, like walks of life. We have to make sure that we have queer characters. We have to make sure that we have...
disabled,
multiple like disables.
Oh, handicapped, disabled.
Whoa. Hey,
I think that's politically accurate, is it not?
I'm just kidding. I don't know. We mean no harm, but you get what we're talking about. But it's like, yeah, we have to have like queer characters. We have to have different demographics, different ethnic groups, different like people with disabilities, people with
so on. Diabetes.
This guy has to use an EpiPen. This guy has crutches.
This guy has a nut allergy.
This guy fucking sells oranges. We have to, now it's like the spectrum has shifted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To where it's like we're not excluding everybody, but at this point it's like, no, we have to include everybody to make sure that all the checks are marked and we don't get in trouble for anything.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I think one of the main things also is that when we look back on movies, especially, again, to touch on comedy, when you look back on some of the content that was being put out, especially a movie like a National Lampoon's Animal House, or you look at something like Porky's, where it's like there were clear scenes depicting like forced intimacy as like comedic relief.
Yeah.
They'd be like, this girl's passed out. I better check to see what she's got going on. I better take my chance and shit.
Yeah. And that stuff I understand. Like that needed to change. Like I understand that coin of the or that side of the coin.
No, I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. You know, like another contrast would be like Tropic Thunder and the role that Robert Downey Jr. played, because it is like it falls within the discussion of controversy because of
blackface
and the way that it was portrayed.
Yeah,
which some people have gone as far as to say that it was tasteful blackface, which is interesting. The way that it was perceived and the way that the actors, how they accounted for the role. Yeah, because for the most part, from what I've seen from like different interviews and stuff, like I think like Robert Downey Jr. like reached out to some of the other like to people that he knew. Like I know Jamie Foxx is one of those people that told him about the role. I was like, "What do you think, man?
Yeah,
like what do you think about it?" That shit's funny.
Yeah,
he's like, "Are you sure?" Yeah, like, and I wouldn't fucking doubt it. He seems like a guy that would worry about that. It's almost like Leonardo DiCaprio in Django.
Yeah, when he was talking to Samuel L.
Because he didn't want to fucking do it. He was hella scared to do it.
Yeah,
and like Samuel L. Jackson like had to give him the fucking green light to do it.
Yeah, well, I think even then too. I think people don't realize that at the time that happened with Robert Downey Jr., his career was like on the low end.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, yeah.
Like that's when he was like coming out of jail or like dealing with all the substance use and all that stuff.
I think he was like, he might have been on like sort of like rebuilding himself from being like, with his, substance and stuff.
Yeah. And so that taking that role during that time in his life, I mean, that's ballsy. But at that time, the political climate, the racial climate wasn't at the height of discussion as it is now.
No.
Right?
It was.
And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm saying, like, it shouldn't be talked about. But at that time, it wasn't being talked about. It wasn't
being talked about. That's the thing. It's at the time where, like, you had people quoting, like, Chappelle Show skits.
Yeah.
That openly, like, said, the hard N-word.
Yeah.
Like with the hard R and shit. And like, it wasn't a topic that was like openly or widely considered maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it too has to do with the impact of social media.
Mm-hmm.
Because now what you see is people going back, looking at this stuff, bringing it to light and saying like, hey, this wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, a lot of it probably wasn't and it's not. But at the time, that's the kind of media that was going around.
That there was a blind eye turned to it.
Oh, for sure.
But it's like it wasn't being like identified.
And people were almost like scared to talk about it. Like, oh, I'm not going to talk about that. That's
like, I won't touch that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll laugh, but I won't talk about it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think now with the way that the way that these discussions and topics have been modernized through the use of social media, and now like people have platforms like YouTube and stuff, and it's a lot of it is talked about more.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's fucking, especially now in like 2023, and it's like it's definitely like on the table for discussion, and it's like a very prominent topic of discussion now.
Yeah. As it should be.
But it just wasn't a thing. Back in the day. Yeah. So I think people got away with it more.
Well, because even say you were to talk about it, you're going to talk about it with the person sitting next to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to talk about it with the whole, what is it now? X?
Yeah.
The whole X community.
Threads.
I don't even have Threads. Do you have Threads?
I have Threads, but
that's all right.
I didn't use it. I didn't use it the way I thought that I was going to use it.
I can't download more social media or anything. It's there.
I was going to use it for the fucking podcast, and it's just too much. Fuck.
It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. But yeah, I think movies like Tropic Thunder, I still consider a classic. I think, like I said, at least personally, my criteria is, did I enjoy the movie? That's it. And do I enjoy it enough to rewatch it, to talk to people about it, to have a conversation about it? Yeah. I'm not saying that like I agree with everything in all of the instant classics that I enjoy, but some of the things like they were like on this list, Casablanca. I had to watch Casablanca for for a class in school, I wouldn't watch anything else aside from Casablanca. No, I'm not. Yeah.
It's like, call me uneducated. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't.
Like, it doesn't do it for me.
It's like when people say Shakespeare was the best literary writer of all time. It's quote one thing that Shakespeare said.
And there's a lot of people that now would be like, it's mid.
It's mid.
Shakespeare's mid.
It's got no riz.
Within the same topic to move it forward. Currently now, I guess given within our day and age, when you think about films, are there any that stick out to you that you would consider a classic? Within this time within the idea of like retention and impression.
Movies that we haven't talked about that I really enjoy. Because everybody knows Marvel and all that stuff, so I won't talk about that. I would say Parasite. Parasite was a damn good movie.
I'll take that.
I really enjoyed like the topicality of the whole us versus them mentality and the whole the rich get rich, the poor get poorer. And so I really enjoyed that film and I continue to recommend it to people to this day. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but that's what stuck out to me right away.
Let me ask you, being that you've seen Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Because there was an article, related to what I just asked you. And Oppenheimer was a movie that was highlighted as something that is as close as we can get to like the idea of a classic film.
Yeah.
As something that holds up in the vein of, like you said earlier, a Godfather, Casablanca. Like that is a movie.
It's what would be considered critically acclaimed.
And that's in this current day and age.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way? Like having watched it?
I think if I was somebody who was a critic, like an actual movie critic, I would say, yeah, the acting is definitely some of the best acting I've ever seen, even when words aren't being said. I think that's good acting. I think that's great acting.
Just physical interaction?
Yeah. Body language, just physical appearance, tone, eyes, posture, like all of that stuff. Yeah, they got it down. The way the movie was shot and the fact that it was shot with all practical effects, did I enjoy it as much as I would enjoy something like, I don't know, an Iron Man? No, because it didn't have as much of a lasting impact on me like Iron Man did, right? So did I enjoy the movie? Yeah, it was really cool. Would I watch it again? Probably not. It's hard to get through. But
that is almost the caveat between where it would be considered a classic, like in terms of like personal reception. It's like, yeah, it is a really good movie, but it's such a contrast from an Iron Man.
Yeah,
because it's just a different type of movie. Well, it is a different type of movie.
Yeah,
in terms of like, I guess what people are used to seeing now. It's not Fast 10,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like the next guy probably would recommend The Whale. From my understanding, The Whale is an amazing movie.
Yeah. I haven't watched it, but I've heard the same thing.
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah.
But guess what? Like, this guy's going to recommend Jumanji to you.
Yeah.
Because Dwayne Johnson. Like, that is the nature of what movies are right now. It's like, hey, did you watch They Clone Tyrone? That's a great fucking movie. But do you like Humphrey Bogart movies?
Yeah.
Who is Humphrey Bogart?
I have no idea.
Casablanca.
Fuck that guy.
But you know what I mean? I understand. I like the movie Bloodsport. Jean-Claude Van Damme's fucking silly, but I think Bloodsport's fucking tight.
Yeah.
It's a classic for me. Am I going to analyze it for you?
Yeah.
Probably not. But it's two different fucking things. Especially the spectrum of film and like what you like. I was just telling the Nomad, he gave me a list of horror movies that are all like really, really good. But horror is one of those things that the movies slip through the cracks because it's so overlooked because of the genre.
It's niche.
But are there good movies? Fuck yeah, they're great movies.
Yeah.
And movies that are very well done for their genre because they're not campy. Like they have a good amount of story and the dialogue is cool, the tone, the overall feeling. Like one of the movies that he gave me was The Crazies. The Crazies is a fucking great movie because there's a very serious fucking tone throughout. Just as much a drama as it is a horror movie because there is an overall crisis that is trying to be worked out throughout the movie. But is it overlooked? Yeah, because it's a fucking horror movie. Whereas if I were to tell you like, hey, Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is a fucking classic. Sure it is. But look at the imagery. Look at the way that it's portrayed. It's very cartoony in comparison.
Yeah.
Because it is a slasher movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a spectrum. Well, everything kind of works on the spectrum. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not everything's black and white.
If you had a list of movies that you would recommend to someone that would serve as good, like just overall fucking films, what would you recommend?
Space Jam #1. I would recommend Parasite. I would recommend Whiplash. Life is Beautiful. Came out in 1997. Has to do with the Holocaust. I should watch it. And if I had to say one more, B movie.
Choose carefully, because you'll stay in the job that you pick for the rest of your life. And you'll be happy to know that bees as a species haven't had one day off in 27 million years.
So you'll just work us to death?
We'll sure try.
I feel like I was on a roll. And then I had to hit him with the B movie. No, take out B movie, put in Avengers. The original Avengers.
The first one?
Yeah. There you go. That's my top 5 instant classics. Yourself?
I would definitely say the Lord of the Rings series. I would definitely recommend them as like movies that hold the test of time and are, you know, overall like fan favorites. Obviously Harry Potter.
Once I make my move, then you're free to check the king. No. Ron, no!
Bro, there's memes, like people reenact them.
Yeah.
They're good, they're quotable.
They're for the culture.
I'm definitely going to say a movie that is considered a cult classic. I don't know if you would consider it like a general overall classic, but A Clockwork Orange is a film that had a substantial fucking impact on me as like a straightforward drama. I think it's like a really, really good movie. Read the written works, like definitely go and do that, but the film is great. I can't not say Star Wars. Because it was like, it's so impactful. Like it's generational impact that it has.
Yeah.
And I say that because my godmother who raised my father, they attended the original opening of Star Wars. And plus it came out of the Central Valley, like, you know, or George Lucas anyway came out of the Central Valley. It just had that impact. It's just like one of those franchises that run so strong within like the nerd
culture,
you know?
Yeah.
The fifth one, I'm definitely going to say classic, and especially because it's animation, is The Lion King.
A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
And this'll all be mine?
Everything.
Everything the light touches.
The Lion King is just a good fucking movie. It's animated. It's got musical numbers. There's a Broadway show. It has
notable characters, a great story. It's fucking emotional at some points. There's a love interest. It's a coming of age story.
Overcoming adversity. An uncle that's kind of a dickhead. Hyenas.
We all know that one.
Fuck yeah, we do.
The dickhead uncle or the hyenas?
I know both. No, yeah, I think it's like an overall, like a really good movie. Like I think if, you know, like most kids, most parents, most adults that raise their kids at that time, like know The Lion King.
Oh, yeah.
If they don't know like other notable Disney movies. What are you currently watching, reading, playing?
Right now, watching, I just watched A Man Called Otto.
How is that?
It was good. It was good.
Tom Hanks, no?
Yeah, I feel like Tom Hanks is one of those guys where you see in
that
film.
Guy's timeless.
Yeah, but then you look at him and you're like, you're always questioning, is that Tom Hanks? And then you see the credits roll and it says starring Tom Hanks and you're like, yeah, that was Tom Hanks. That was me. Like, I know Tom Hanks. I know what he sounds like. But every time I see him, just something about him.
Polar Express. It's like, is everybody on this fucking train Tom Hanks? The kid? The fucking conductor? Santa Claus?
Tom Hanks.
Is it all just Tom Hanks?
I don't know. Could be. But I'll watch that. Reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Like slowly chugging along. It's over 1,000 pages. 4 books deep. But we'll see. People say that it's a modern Game of Thrones.
I was about to ask genre.
Yeah, it's fantasy.
Fantasy?
Yeah. But it's like world built, like heavily world building. Cool power system. I like it. Very political, which is cool. I never read the Game of Thrones. I just watched it, but I could see why people compare them. That's what I'm reading. Playing, I have been playing a lot of Apex recently, but as of tomorrow, the new DLC for Cyberpunk comes out. So I'm looking forward to playing that.
Starfield? Yes or no?
I don't know. I don't have an Xbox. And I don't have a PC. All PlayStation.
I thought you had Xbox.
I was contemplating buying an Xbox specifically for Starfield. But now Bethesda just announced that they're not really going to be supporting PlayStation games from here on out. So it might be time to buy an Xbox or build a PC. I don't know. But I also don't want to cash out $2,000 on a PC.
So you got to watch YouTube University. Find out.
Yes, sir.
What parts go where.
There's a dad on YouTube that like teaches you stuff. Maybe he might teach me how to build a PC. Yeah, we'll see. I'm gonna drop that in the comment sections. Build a PC next. But eating like shit. Eating like shit. Yeah, that's me right now. Shout out to Valley Meal Prep. I've been eating a lot of their stuff recently. It's right next to my work, so I just go in, grab a quick meal, and dog it. What about you, man?
I will say, I've discovered that Tubi has a lot of cool shit. Tubi is a free streaming app. This is not a sponsored or a paid advertisement,
but it should be.
It should be. Tubi's free. If you haven't found out about Tubi yet, it has a lot of cool shit on it. It has like a lot of cool movies and a lot of cool shows, like shows that you maybe forgot about at one point, and then when you come across them, you're like, oh fuck, like
Yeah.
It has a lot of cool shit. I'm very into like aliens and shit. So it has a lot of those documentaries that are like the hoax of space.
Yeah.
What the government side. So I watch that shit. Other than that, playing Call of Duty every now and then. I heard they're going to be releasing some crazy DLC for Halloween, the skins, which looks pretty cool. And that's it, man.
We made it.
We made it.
This is still the intro, by the way. We haven't even gotten
to We didn't even get to the fucking end. We didn't even talk about what we were going to talk about. You guys know where to find us at this point. We have a social link. Social media is connected to it.
It's been real, man.
Frankfurt.
Don't get into this.
Mine Heiss. I'll edit that out. But it's Frankfurt, Germany.
Frankfurt, as in Frankfurter, as in hot dog,
as in wieners,
as in docking.